Hey, you guys, we are kind of on time, right? Can you hear me? Let me see about my comments. I see Viv. I see George. Hi, George. Nice to see you. It's been one of these crazy weeks. Okay, where are we going? Shall we just start in, guys? I hope you're all doing well. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to start with the first questions, guys, right? First in, first out. Did want to say hi to George. He was obviously the first to make a comment. Here's Viv. I was reading this right before we turned on, Viv. So Viv says, I've had consultations completed more than 10 weeks ago. Also 14.5 months since filing initial claim. Okay, so she's well over a year. I know that's really annoying how slow it is. In your practice, how long are you seeing cases take in the current situation? Honestly, there is no set way, Viv. I have cases that still pan out in 3 months, and then some are on initial for a year. Fortunately, I can go in and see generally if there's an adjudicator assigned. And normally when it's that long of a wait, it's because there was no adjudicator for a really long time. They were just, they did hiring freezes a few years ago, and everything is really tightened up. And those are state workers, not federal government. So it really does vary. Now, you had your consultations. I think you're meaning your consultative examinations 2.5 months ago. Makes me wonder if that adjudicator isn't there anymore. Might be. Now they're waiting for another one to finish it up. Hard to tell. It's very hard to tell. I'm going to assume you guys can hear me, right? Because you'd be saying, we can't hear you. We just see your mouth moving, right? That's all right, Viv. So Viv was referring to medical, meaning physical and mental health consultations on her initial claim. Hi, Rat's Nest. Nice to see you. That's a great little name you have. I had a pet rat once. Actually, we've had several. My daughter worked at a pet store. Well, she still works at a pet store. They're very cute, those rats. All right. Thanks, Viv. I appreciate. Dina. Hi, Dina. Nice to see you. Cooper Alyssa. How are you? Good to see you. Okay. Dimple's here. Good to see you, Dimple. Come on, guys. Got the questions? Dina has a question, I believe. Let me pop you up, Dina. Second mental health evaluation coming up soon. Been denied once. Any advice? I did get a lawyer this time. Well, that's probably good. Just, because they're going to probably have some insights that you might not have in terms of pursuing different medical treatment that produces the records that you might want for your case. Second medical evaluation coming up soon. There is a video I have on, I think it's on getting to your mental health consultative examination. It's probably, I really have to take a listen to it myself and see if there's anything more I should be adding, because that's probably a year or two old now. But you can check it out if you want. I think it's under the playlist of mental health claims, maybe. Let's see. Oh, Dave Goodwin, you have an ALJ hearing tomorrow. First timer. Wow. Dave, you've been waiting since you started back in early COVID, when it's summer of 2020. That's a long wait. I will tell you that right before COVID, I had a ALJ hearing. So this was like in February of 2020, right before everything thereafter shut down for quite a while. And the interruption prevented the flow of what I thought was going to happen. And it was only, put it this way, last month we finally got an award, and he still hasn't been paid yet, but that will happen soon. So we went from, it was an ALJ hearing in early 2020. And now we had to appeal. There was an unexpected denial after that hearing, which I think COVID had something to do with, because it seemed like the judge may have gotten, like other people were taking the ball and rolling with it. And I don't know. But yeah, so there was a remand here. I got it remanded from the appeals council, and then a fourth hearing, and we finally won it. Sometimes it is quite a marathon, which Dave, obviously you're going through that. I assume you have a lawyer, maybe, Dave, so he's giving you some hearing prep. Same thing, trial prep, hearing prep. Just to kind of let you know the sequence of events. I know we have video on that, just about the sequence of what you can expect at the hearing, if you need that. But if you have a lawyer, I'm sure they're prepping you accordingly. Dina says she was I think I was on a high with bipolar until the last evaluation that I work great with others. Totally not true. I know. The funny thing is with my headphones are getting me. With some of the mental health cases, someone was asking earlier on a post on YouTube today, asked me if there's any hearing prep that would be applicable to mental health hearings, SSD hearings, versus the part where we focus on the physical. And it's difficult because, if you're claiming that someone is so mentally troubled that they cannot work any job solely because of the mental, it would be really kind of unusual to think that you could actually prep them. And if you did, it might indicate that they are not as mentally struggling to do even just like a basic, simple job as might be alleged. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, if it's going to be a purely mental health case, I believe. Dave has a lawyer. Good for you, Dave. Dio, can I ask the me or the V, so that would be the medical expert guys or the vocational expert, hypothetical questions from the Blue Book? In other words, will the judge allow these questions? If you're self-representing Dio, the judge should allow you to do that. If he doesn't, is he going to let you take 3 hours? I think we've talked about this before. No, but if you have something directly, like if you have like a Blue Book listing you think you meet, and you specifically have on your piece of paper at exhibit number 3F at page 45, it specifically says this, and that meets A of the Blue Book listing, does it not? You could ask those kind of questions. I believe so, for sure. I think a judge will give you leeway if you're pro se to do that. Again, he's probably not going to let you go for 3 hours if it's getting nonsensical or anything like that. But I certainly think so. That's your prerogative. Now, the VE, you can't ask those questions of Dio because he's not a listing expert. He's not a medical expert. He only takes the hypotheticals that are given to him, which, of course, I've never been in a hearing where I haven't cross-examined the vocational expert unless the only answers he gave to the judge's hypotheticals were no jobs, no jobs, no jobs. Because obviously you leave well enough alone. But if it was a medical expert at the hearing, which is not typical, I don't see a lot of medical experts at hearings anymore. But yeah, I think you could. And I think the judge would let you. And if he didn't, it would be on the record and you might have an appealable issue there. Lionel, how are you? Good to see you again. Lionel says, my reconsideration has so far lasted 7 months. I just recently changed neurologists for a more specialized migraine treatment program. I love that you're doing that, Lionel. Should I send that new doctor's info to the DDS or will it cause delay? Does it matter? You need to send that. The fact that first of all, I always say people that are claiming migraines and that they're debilitating, you're unwise, I think, to not have a specialist, a migraine specialist, not just a neurologist for the migraines, although that's better than a primary care alone. But there are migraine specializing neurologists, very in tune with migraine, more so than other, neurological disorders. So I think if you're getting a more specialized one, it really points to the severity of, it helps. It's kind of part of those crumbs that build that big cake about how bad those migraines are. And for sure. You want to tell them about that person and they can order the records. Or if you, I don't know that you've actually gone to the neurologist yet, but if you get those records, hopefully they have a portal. You can download the actual progress note. Super, super important. I think you did a really smart thing doing that. And you do want it in, as soon as possible. And like you said, can it delay it? Yes, but when people want to hurry up and then get denied, it doesn't make sense, right? You want it to have the strongest case you have so that you don't have to do this again. So you don't have to go to a hearing if you don't have to go to a hearing, right? Sooner is better. Get it all in. But if it means they're going to take an extra week, so what, right? And 7 months, yeah, that's not unusual. Dave's got a lawyer. Hello, Maggie. Good to see you, Maggie. Hello, I'm in the middle of the function report. Oh, isn't that fun? Work history report, pain, migraine, and cardiac questionnaires. Oh, they gave you a handful. Guys, what she's talking about, which many of you may not have seen because it doesn't happen all the time. I would say most of the time the offices don't do this, but some of them do. It's like a proprietary, almost additional questionnaire. Sorry, my hair is really bothering me. Specific to certain allegations. Like if you allege pain is kind of disabling, they might give you a pain questionnaire. Migraine, same idea. They want to get to the details of the migraines and cardiac and all that. So that's just specific to that particular adjudicator and or office, that's how they do it. So it's more work for you, but it is what it is, right? Supposed to be due tomorrow. Any last minute tips? I'm looking at all your videos. Just answer the questions, and I always say, as a general rule, right? When you're answering the questions, you're focusing on the bad parts, not the good parts, because the bad parts is what they need to know about in order to see how truly limited you are. So I wouldn't use things like how often do you have a migraine. I sometimes have migraines. Like I wouldn't use vagaries like that. However, if it's very infrequently that you have them, like twice a year, it's probably not going to be disabling impairment anyway. But if it's, if a migraine, you get it once a week and it can last up to 2 days, that's 4 times a month, or you could say once a week, whichever way you want. Sometimes it's a range. Some people will say, well, on a good month, I'll only get 2 of them. And on a bad month, I'll get 6, They probably are asking you in there about any additional symptoms like nausea, photophobia, phonophobia, all those kind of things. If you're bedridden for your migraines, that's really important because, we talk about this. Some people say a migraine when really it's a bad headache. Like if you can drive your car and run an errand or go to the doctor's, you probably aren't having the kind of migraine that would be disabling. So you don't want to look like you're claiming something when it's not nearly as bad as that. So you don't want to over exaggerate. It'll come out in the wash. Just me. Good to see you, just me. My MRI, Stephanie, my MRI results has new and relevant evidence. Ooh. I let SSA know, and I pointed out how new evidence relates to old claim and specific evidence in file. Requested reopening. Okay, this is a reopening case. Thank you for your help. Oh, you bet. If it relates to the old claim, like let's say, and I'm just giving you an example of what could possibly do this. Let's say you have a current MRI. It's outside the time frame of what you're trying to reopen. If you have a remote DLI, for instance, but it said, let's say in the doctor's or the radiologist report, it says, looks like years old fracture. I don't know, something that relates to the past instead of just saying what it is today. That might arguably anyway go back in time because he's talking about a retrospective. He's finding it today, but he's saying it's a 3-year-old fracture or a 3-year-old this. It's not that common for them to do that, but occasionally we see something like that. Okay, rat's nest. I am relatively young, under 42, and have 2 kids under 5. How do I express my disability of autoimmune kidney disease and symptoms from that and meds, even with dependents so young? It's hard. If you get help with your kids, because you have to do a lot of napping, for instance, I would be expressing that like, I can't, I'm not Whether you're bringing a babysitter or you have a spouse or an older child that can watch the younger ones. Don't think you do. It sounds like you only have the two little guys. They're not supposed to, I don't believe, hold that someone who is raising kids is therefore not disabled. We know that's a fallacy. But you're going to have to show that you're not running to all the baseball games and being the team mom for Little League, and maybe you get extra help. Maybe you can't go to all the functions that they have, like the little, which would be terribly sad because they're so cute when they have those little kiddie concerts and stuff. The Christmas concerts, I love them. Every way that you have to do things differently than if you didn't have your impairments, those are the things I'd be being sure to get out there. If you bring her to dance class, but then you have to leave the spouse there to finish it up and take her home because you had to get home because of whatever. Anything that shows that you are really losing some quality of life on the personal front. Because when people are rock stars as parents while they're claiming to be disabled and I can't work a simple job, but I can sure as heck be a Wonder Woman for my kids. We all want to be, but that really, really illustrates something kind of inconsistent with what we're saying. Because people suffering from grave disability do have to sacrifice a bit in terms of what they would want to do for their kids. They might have other people doing it. They're not negligently doing anything or leaving something out, but that would be negligence. But they have to forego some things. I knew one lady who would go to the baseball games, but she'd have to lie down in the car after like a half hour and just wait it out until she could get a ride home with the rest of the family. Things like that. Jeffrey Taylor, nice to see you, Jeffrey. I went to a CE consultative exam on January 24th. Doctor had me jump up and down on one foot, which according to the MRI resulted in a bulging disc. Ooh. My initial was denied. I'm appealing. I submitted my MRI. A bulging disc isn't really considered very alarming, though, just so you know. And I actually recall this from back in the days back before I was in the Social Security world, so too many decades to remember. I did insurance defense. So that was basically trying cases on behalf of the insurance carrier representing an allegedly negligent person who perhaps caused a car accident or didn't take care of a sidewalk and someone tripped and fell. So I represented the defendant who was getting sued by the person who got hurt and is claiming that it's the defendant's fault and that they should pay money, in which case the insurance then covers the bill if it's up to the policy limits. And bulges did nothing for our case. It even got to the point, so this is a long time ago, I won't say how long, herniations didn't much count anymore either. So unless there was nerve impingement, the abutment of a nerve, exiting roots, all these kind of things showing up. So look closely at your MRI and see if it says something about the nerves, any abutment of the cord. And I will say for disability, maybe not so much for personal injury like I was defending against back then, spinal cord stenosis, particularly if it's moderate to severe, can be helpful to a case, not for your body, but for a case. As opposed to just saying degenerative disc disease, because everybody's got that, like over the age of 40, right? Or mild stenosis is better than no stenosis. I mean, not for your body, but for your case. But basic herniations and bulges, they're not going to get you disabled. They might get you to, she can't do heavy work, but that leaves medium, light, and sedentary, which is a lot of jobs. Okay. Jeffrey asked the question, and you know the answer to this, Jeffrey. What are my chances at recon? I don't know your chances at recon. Recon, there's less chance of getting it flipped than you had on initial, right? But if you've gotten more evidence in, and particularly if you're in a grid range, I don't recall how old you are, Jeffrey, then and you got a new evidence. Like if you have no new evidence, it's all kind of the same, you're probably going to get the same result, because remember, it's the same office looking at it, just a different adjudicator. And I get the unspoken theory amongst many of us practitioners that the one guy is not going to overturn the other guy unless it is grossly flawed. Or better yet, if there's new evidence that gives him a reason to change the decision and it's not insulting the guy down the hallway, because on the evidence he had at the time, his decision was appropriate under SSA policies. So it can help to give them a reason to overturn that will not cause strife in the office. And by the way, that's not anything official. It's just like an overall sentiment some of us feel. M. Williams, good afternoon to you too. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm sure you have multiple other issues that, according to your lawyer, warrants SSDI, because he wouldn't be taking it. Exactly. So the MRI you're talking about can be gravy on the cake. It adds to it. It's not like you have a perfect back, and it shows that. So remember, every single case is different. Some people need to just show a little bit of back problem. Other people will have to show that the back is absolutely totally debilitating and he can't even, walk for the most part or walk far. So every case is so fact specific about what that person needs to meet the laws that apply to him. All right. And that has to do with the grids a bit, because those where all the different little rules come into play. Hi, Trish. Nice to see you too. Lionel, you're welcome. LA Native TV. My cousin just had his medical exam canceled. Is that a good sign? I usually think so. I wouldn't say it's 100%, but if they were thinking they needed a medical exam to prove something, and then maybe a record came in that proved it so they could save the money on the medical exam, I usually find that they're going to keep a medical exam to help support a denial if they're going to deny. Whereas if they get rid of the medical exam, they no longer have that support of that consultative examiner showing that the person's just only moderately, limited. So sometimes the canceling of a medical exam is a good sign. However, I would say it's definitely not 100%. I think I did see once where it was canceled and the person got denied. So, but by and large, I think I've seen it on the other side. So how's that for an indefinite answer, LA? But fingers are crossed for you, my dear. Heather, I requested that mental health prep YouTube. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Heather's the one that asked about, can you do a hearing prep summary video for a mental health case? And that's going to be really hard for the reasons I mentioned. My hearing is in a month. Anything you can remind me to do, not do, to ask my non-attorney rep. He doesn't call me until the day before. I don't know if you guys have interactions throughout building the case and gathering the evidence. The hearing preps do tend to be shortly before the hearing, because otherwise people forget what you said. So we want it to be fresh in the mind. I usually like to do it before the day before, like maybe 2 days before or 3 days before, because I want the person to be able to reach back out to me in the day or two before the hearing if they had any additional thoughts, or if I did. We do, again, talk a half hour before the hearing as we get into our links and into our, make sure our links are working so we can get into MS Teams hearing and all that. The mental health cases, a lot of symptoms can show up at a hearing. So you don't really want to control those symptoms too much in terms of holding your breath, because the judge kind of needs to see how you are in a basic setting, Let's see. Heather says she has a very well-documented case, including RFC and letters. God, my headphones are really irritating me today. Including RFC and letters from psychiatrists and therapists. That's good. That's good, Heather. Tiger Bite, good to see you. I got in touch with my claim person. I asked if there was anything else he needed. He said he needed updated medical records. I was floored. He hasn't got records since last May. Well, did he just come on? Tiger Bite? That's possible. Yeah, he should be. If he's saying he didn't order them and he's been there the whole time, that's appalling. But my guess is that's not the case, because the case would have been determined. So, I mean, did you guys discuss, is he going to order them? Did he tell you to do it so he doesn't have to? What happened? If these medical record providers are, if you have a portal for them, you know, the law changed around 2019. They passed the law that said that if there's a portal, they have to put the progress notes up. That is the part that they usually didn't do. For all those years we had portals, they were useless. All they did was confirm that there was an appointment. And I think tests were uploaded, but not progress notes, which is where he just, you know, the narrative of she's here complaining of this, shows the physical exam, review of systems, what the complaints are, the impression, diagnoses, the plan that's going to happen going forward, all that kind of stuff. So if you have a portal, I would order them. I mean, I would go right in there, and depending if you have Epic or MyChart, that's the most robust company. And I'm not trying to toot their horn or anything, but that's what a lot of the big providers do, what they use. Other providers use smaller portal companies, and I find them to be a real pain because you have to go in and individually print out each and every record that you want to download. Whereas I just want the big, beautiful file, you know? And there's a section about encounters. So you could go right there to actually get a list right within that big PDF that they can download. But if you know, I do that a lot. If I see something slow, aside from the fact that we fax records requests to the providers, if I can get the progress notes from the portal, then we don't have to wait for that delay. You know, portals are not perfect, but they can help in that regard. So, yeah, that's pretty appalling. Heather, you're 61. Okay, Heather. So you have that lawyer, you said, right? It doesn't take much physical limitations to help you get where you need to be for a grid at 61. So make sure you're following up not just with mental health, but with the physical things, because you just have to prove that you can't do medium or heavy work. That's not the only thing you have to prove, but that's one of the 3 prongs you have to prove in the grid. So, but that means you have to have something physically, not like it was when you were 20, with follow-up. So there's actually medical proof that it's ongoing, that it bothers you, that it limits you, and all that good stuff. Not really good stuff, but you know what I'm saying. Just me. It's chronic infarcts too, and the SSA, right? Ophthalmologist put in the report, my vision is consistent with stroke and physical CE, showing significant range of motion on one side. That's helpful, depending on the rest of your case and your vocational profile and all that business. Rat's Nest, you're very welcome. Me Heidi got a 12-page packet from the SSA office. Ooh, that would be a function report or a work history report. We're still in the initial stage 3. Yep. Packet is asking about work done after the date of disability. Is this normal? If you have been, DOD, date of, what is DOD? Oh, date of disability. You mean the alleged onset date. AOD is what we call that. You know, that would be, I would think, a work activity report, 12 pages. Was it an SSA 820 or 821? Me, Heidi? And also, did you look at your annual earnings statement that you can download and see, does it actually show earnings after your alleged onset date? Like, let's say you allege you were disabled in December of 2023, that you hadn't worked any further, but 2024 is showing Social Security covered earnings. Doesn't mean you are working, by the way. There's oftentimes we'll get paid something on paper or in reality that is not work earnings. It could be vacation pay paid later. It could be, sometimes it could even be like stock options, and somehow they taxed it and, you know, reported it in that way. I've seen everything. And you just want to be able to prove to the SSA that, okay, that income came in, but that was not from work. So then you're going to describe what it's from. If you have sometimes those 1099s will actually say, it'll have a little box that checked and says disability pay or vacation or stock up, like retirement. It'll say something that is inconsistent with it being work activity, even though it's up there in the wages, because that's how they reported it and taxed it. Does that make any sense? I know it's confusing. but that they would only, in theory, they should only have sent that if there was some indication that you took in money after that, and they need to find out if it's from work. So, got to do that, right? Oh, I'll bring up an interesting thing about work, guys. Client of mine, in the medical records before a hearing, there was indication, say 6 months after the alleged onset date, there's a medical record dated 6 months later where the doctor reports, this is say a gyno, reports that the person seeking fertility treatments, right, or had been. And in this record, it says she's been unable to start fertility pills because her work schedule is so heavy. And in fact, there had been previously a very heavy work schedule, but that ended 6 months prior. So the judge, this is what I mean when some of these judges have great ways of digging out little tiny nuances like this. And the judge asked about it at the hearing. Wanted to know, did you work after? Because your alleged onset date is this, but look at Dr. So-and-so's record. And the client's like, no, I absolutely did not. So I asked the judge if I could do a post-hearing letter to her as we flesh this out and try to figure out, I wanted to be able to really give strong evidence that no, she did not work then. That was the doctor's typical typo error when they talk about something from 3 years ago and they act like it's currently happening. I know for a fact it's incorrect. We did get some circumstantial evidence, like showing that, like 3 months prior to that, the other gyno said something to the effect of, been trying all sorts of fertility things over the years. Nothing's been successful, to show that that whole fertility thing was going on way back when the person was working. And that, the judge just, did a boo-boo. And I don't think the judge is going to disbelieve the client. She's extremely credible. And the judge is very familiar with sloppy doctor records, saying things that, on their face are inconsistent with what the claimant's saying, but it's just sloppy recording. But just so you know, those things come up. It could be whether you're talking about a vacation. You could have a vacation from 3 years ago and suddenly it's popping up as if you took it yesterday. So I always say, go through your own records with a fine-tooth comb and expect to be asked about it so that you have the full explanation available and you're not in shock. All right. Range of motion limitations. Yeah, that's a big deal. You'll see, this is just me, is talking about his or her significant range of motion limitations. A lot of times in those CE exams, they test your range of motion. And if you have perfectly good range of motion, that's not helpful if you have musculoskeletal issues. So don't be silent if it hurts. Now, don't also make up if it doesn't hurt that it does. But if they're moving something and it's, don't be Wonder Woman or Superman. Be very honest about when it starts to hurt, or else it's going to look like it doesn't, and you've got full range of motion and no pain. Randy the Cat. For mental health consultative exam, do you recommend in-person or is telehealth okay? Oh boy. I suppose for a mental health consultative exam, telehealth could be okay. However, do you also have physical limitations, pain limitations? Do you have things that would be notable in person but not in front of a screen? Like, do you walk with a limp? Even though they're not examining you for that, sometimes that'll be in their record, like walked with an antalgic gait when she came into the room, or, So it can really vary. It really shouldn't matter, but that's just one thing I always think of in the back of my mind. Like, or does someone get very tweaky by leaving their home? Like they're not totally agoraphobic, but they're very uptight, and that wouldn't really be presented at a telehealth visit because they're in the comfort of their own home, they're in their safe space, blah, blah, blah. They haven't had the aggravation of sitting in the car through traffic, waiting in the waiting room. They've been home more comfortable. So if those factors would cause you to evidence more symptoms at the visit, then I kind of think going in person is better. I mean, it's not as pleasant for you, but, you know, being able to go out for an hour and be around, even if it's just one or two strangers, is something we have to do no matter what our job, right? You know, and if that is tweaky for somebody, cause them to get very stressed out, overwhelmed, it's, you know, nervous, tearful, that's something that you might want to be evident at an in-person that might not be evident telehealth. So every case is different, like I'm always saying, right? But just something to think about. Jeffrey Taylor is 60. You're a young 60, Jeffrey. I'm right behind you. Okay. And Williams, X-rays and MRI from PCP in last 4 months. Good. Nice updated diagnostics, guys. That's always a good thing. Dunn had physical and mental CEs. Okay. Now the DDS ordered more X-rays and a breathing test. Okay. MRI shows pinched nerve and X-rays showed severe narrowing in my back. I mean, that sounds pretty positive. You know, to what level of proof you need to show what level of severity will vary depending on your vocational profile, including your age. But I think they ordered more X-rays. That's interesting if they have the old ones, unless it's a different body part. The breathing test suggests that maybe you have asthma, but you are not treating for more than just going, you know, getting your prescriptions from your primary care. And they're like, well, they have a duty to work up everything because there is, you know, levels of impairments at jobs that would be eliminated by your, you know, reduced breathing. It might not be something that would take you out of all jobs, but, you know, remember you're carving out 12,000 jobs. So, you know, you want to get rid of those breathing ones. Like maybe it would be medium or heavy work. You know, like if you have to prove you can't do medium or heavy work, and so long as you prove that and you don't have to prove you can't do light work, PFT could be very helpful if you have limited, not disabling of all jobs, but disabling from doing a medium or heavy job. You see? Every case is like a little puzzle, like a little maze. You just got to find the right path to get to award. And sometimes there's more ways to get to an award than one, but some have a better chance than other ones. So. Oh, Dimple, can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Okay, good audio here, Jeffrey says. Dimple says, never mind. Tigerbite. Oh, Tigerbite is a veteran with records from VHA. It should be easy from the portal. That's what floored me, and he's a different claim person. Yeah, he probably just came on board. The other one left, and your case was sitting there for a long time. Thank you for your service, by the way. I love our veterans. Okay. Oh, your headset decided to take over. Yeah, I know that feeling. I'm very non-techy, so when something goes awry, I get a little panicked. Me, Heidi, 821. Okay, so 821 is the employment. So you got a W-2 probably reported. IRS refund, would that be a 1099, Heidi, or would that be? But you should know what you got. Look in your bank account, right? What did you get for the time period there for everything after the alleged onset date? Find out what it is. And by the way, if it's under SGA, for let's say you got it all one time and you know it's under SGA anyway, then that will be also in your favor. But they still need to know if it was work or not, because if it's work activity, they got to make a judgment call on your ability to do some sort of work activity. You know, yeah, I don't know how the documentation goes with IRS refunds, Heidi. I haven't had a refund since I was probably in my 20s because I'm self-employed. So I always have to come up with extra money at the year end because I misestimated my quarterlies. It's terrible. Oh, Dimple's husband attempted to pair his Bluetooth speaker with his phone, and it paired with my phone instead. That happens to us all the time. Sometimes I'll hop in my car and it's close to the house, and my daughter or my son have their car, they're on the phone, and it's almost like I'm eavesdropping on the conversation. I'm like, You don't want to be talking to your boyfriend when mom's in the car. I can hear everything you're saying. It gets a little staticky, and then as soon as I pull out, it goes away. But yeah, those Bluetooths are dangerous. Nell Mack. Hi, Nell. My x-ray show moderate degenerative changes of the mid-cervical spine with disc space narrowing and anterior osteophyte formation, as well as depression. I'm 42 and my age get me denied. Oh. Well, remember, you have to prove that you can't do a simple, unskilled third grade or low stress job and sedentary or sit stand option. So whether that will be enough, I really can't say. It doesn't sound that's indicative. I mean, remember, most people with depression do work. They just don't enjoy it. So it's not so much an inability, it's a lack of enjoyment. So you have to show if that's different for you, and you have to do it through medical evidence, mental health records, current treatment for everything. You know, we can't just be uncomfortable working. We have to be unable. It's a very high, you know how it is. No, it's a very high bar to pass. And when you're under 50, it's really hard. But I wish you the best of luck, because a lot of times people are disabled under 50, but they're not going to be able to, they're going to have grave difficulty proving it just because of the way the rules work and the evidence, the way doctors fail to really robustly describe things, or the medical assistants. I don't really want to just blame the doctors, the whole system. John Lee, my online website says the DDS has completed the medical review and started a final review to make sure I still meet the non-medical requirements. Is this a probable sign of a favorable decision? I don't know if you've seen all the videos that came out on occasion over the last about year and a half, I think it is. I don't think it's 2.5, but I just remember, I think it started in like December of 23. I don't think it was 22. I could be wrong now. When it was like this new messaging was coming about we've completed the medical review and now we're sending you for the second part, the non-medical review, which is just basically a formality to confirm that you're insured for SSD. They just double check that you were, and then lo and behold, people are getting denied. And at first it was like, they don't need to do a non-medical review if you never passed the medical, because you can't prevail. So why would they go to step 2 of, it's not really step 2, but the next area, when you were denied, you couldn't even prove you were disabled? That I think is I feel like it's incorrect messaging, and it's been going on for a couple years. We witch and moan about it, and we talk about it on this channel a little bit. I feel like every week I'm getting a comment on an old video going, I just had this and then I was denied. And I'm like, I know, it's so frustrating, because they really need to fix that. It's destructive, I think, to claimants. It's bad enough getting denied. Don't get their hopes up 5 days beforehand. Just don't even send out the message at all. It's ridiculous. So unfortunately, John, I don't know that is a sign one way or the other. I mean, people will get it and then they'll get awarded too, but it doesn't indicate one way or another whether you are on the positive side or the not positive side. Rude rabbits. Oh, look at you. After decades of neurological issues, UCSD dug deep, and I was diagnosed with old, untreated transverse myelitis that caused other things. Doctor states it's permanent and disabling, untreatable. I've heard, okay, he's got a second part. I've heard to get updated, more current diagnosis within a year of SSDI claim. Get it now. How would SSA treat that untreatable, permanent? Well, they're going to look at everything. But if you have records from 5 years ago from a doctor and you haven't followed up because apparently it's not significant enough for you to follow with. Some people, and I get the natural inclination, well, they can't do anything and there is no treatment, so why would I be wasting money and time going to a doctor just for them to rubber stamp that for evidence? That's the only reason. Because sometimes doctors' diagnoses of 5 years ago are incorrect. So the SSA wants to know that it's true today, because you're trying to prove disability today. You're not getting paid for 5 years ago. So it's all about today. But I would definitely include that medical evidence, but you definitely have to get a very thorough current workup. There could be new technologies and new treatments and new, even mild ones, So treat it like it's bothering you, because if it's disabling you, that's what they're going to expect. If it's not bothering you because you were just on vacation anyway, whether or not you could work or not, you need today's evidence, yesterday, today, tomorrow, continuum. So work that up, Rude Rabbit, okay? Hippity hoppity on that. Okay. M. Williams, 56, limited education, COPD, and anxiety. And the physical stuff, right? Aside from the COPD. Have you been working up the physical stuff, M. Williams? You have an attorney, right? Me, Heidi, I forget where we left off. Oops, maybe that was for somebody else. Just me. Unfortunately, even after DDS received the ophthalmologist consultative report, they didn't further develop the possibility of stroke. Well, that's your job to get treatment. They can't make you go to treatment. So, the diagnostic tests talk about it. And if you don't, they don't order MRIs either. They're not there to treat you or anything. They will do certain limited tests like x-rays and that kind of thing. But they're not going to, they don't even pay for MRIs, which I wish they would, but I guess they're really expensive. You need to be working up possibility of stroke. It's your case. And to be honest, whatever the symptoms are that are disabling or limiting, whether it's stroke, aneurysm, whatever it is, neuropathy, whatever it is, you need a diagnosis, and then them saying that this is what's happening from it, basically. A little connection between the two. The diagnosis is because it has to be a medical impairment, not just a symptom. Rowdy the Cats. I have a physical case back, and the office is outside of my driving range, and I will need help to get there. What office? I wanted to do telehealth exam to avoid hurting myself. Do you have friends or family? Can you take an Uber? Think of things like that. How would you get to your own doctor? How would you, if you're going to your own doctor robustly, they wouldn't even technically, in theory, need a CE exam. I think that's what you're talking about, right? A CE exam. Yeah, you might have to hire a driver if you don't have, you don't have any of those bridges intact with friends or family. Because if they want the CE exam, it's because your own stuff thus far isn't enough to put you over into an award. Generally speaking, Rowdy. Generally speaking. Rude Rabbit. I am VA. Thank you for your service, Rude Rabbit. They want to only treat the secondary issues, and they do mention these are from the transplant. Well, guess what? Go get another doctor. Get out of the, what about community care? If you don't like the doctor you're treating with, sometimes you have to get out and get a different one. Which hopefully you're getting VA benefits, and those are far more robust than Social Security disability benefits. And then you can afford to do that, right? Just for the purposes of getting your case as strong as it can be, so you reduce the chance of getting denied, right? Yeah, some people like their VA treatment and others don't. And if they only want to treat the secondary issues, as adults, we have to be our own proactive advocates on what treatment we think we need, whether we need it for evidence, and don't tell them that, or for cures and treatment. But like you said, sometimes there is no cure or treatment, but you still need it for evidence. So you have to be a little clever there, right? Okay, this is Go Cox. I never got a CDR review date on my initial approval letter from 2023. What should I expect? Yeah, sometimes they don't have them in there. You could call. They should be able to tell you your CDR date. I have heard people try to call and they get the big blow off from whoever answers the phone. But other people do get the date. So you could try your local office number, and you can also try the 1-800 number. And I'll just say that one out loud in case anybody doesn't know it. 1-800-772-1213, and tell them you're trying to get your CDR diary date, because you do want to know for sure, so you can be prepared, right? Mrs. Hainsworth, how to report limitations when I can do things but with great pain that will require days to recover. I have arthritis and possible autoimmune disease. I don't know if you've seen any of the function report videos, Mrs. Hainsworth, but I think it's really important. Like a lot of times, like people do their own laundry because they got to do their own laundry, or they're doing everything they can. But you want to then talk about how you're not doing it. Such as if you do a load a week and it takes you from Monday to Friday, you wash it in one day, you dry it the next day. 2 days later, you'll fold half of it, and then 2 days after that, you fold. Like, I'm giving you an example where it's very, very broken up. Now, if you say, oh, I go balls to the wall and I get it all done, but I pay the price. Well, that suggests that the price isn't that high, that the pain is not that high. So usually when someone's in your position, invariably I see that they're not able to be a full-time housekeeper, which, by the way, there's jobs like housekeeping in a hotel that they put you in or say that you could do if you can do it at a regular pace. So if your pace is slower, you need to take frequent breaks. And maybe all the time that you're actually doing activity in the house to get things done is maybe an hour a day because it's all broken up. You would describe it that way. So you're going to show how it's done abnormally and not sufficiently. All the things that make it not in a competitive work environment. You'd be fired. All those breaks, skipping days. If you go a little bit heavy on the one day, you try to avoid that because the consequences will be great, but occasionally you screw up. And then you're, down for the count the next day, right? Yeah, and Williams, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff. You're seeing your doctor and the rest of the crew. Physical therapy, I think, is huge. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a big fan of physical therapy records. At 56, the mental health therapy, if you are not otherwise reduced to an unskilled job, that would be helpful. Okay, Nell says, thanks. I just had the mental health evaluation and I have upcoming appointments, an MRI and a rheumatologist. Rheumatologist, good. Side note, that's very sweet. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I'm here. Just me. Okay. Yep, just me. See doctors and get records. That's what it's all about. Dio. Will the medical expert mention surgery as a last resort option? My specialist cannot find a surgeon for my condition, and she has been looking for over 6 months. Wow, that's a shame. If you're talking about a medical expert at your hearing, right, Dio? Is that what you're saying? If there's a medical expert. Or are you talking about the medical expert that behind the scenes reviews all the medicals once the adjudicator gets everything together, the CE exam, all the medical records, and then decides on your RFC? He's not suggesting anything then. But in theory, if you had a medical expert at your hearing, you could ask him about if he's familiar with the surgery, but remember, whatever you ask, if you don't know the answer he's going to give, and it could be something that could be hurtful to your case, don't ask it. We don't ask things unless we know the answer. So we just want it to come out of his mouth. This is true in all sorts of trial work too. I mean, when I did criminal, divorce, like you don't ask something that you don't want that answer out in front of the judge or the jury or whatever. And Williams, no lawyer. This is my initial. I suggest you get a lawyer on your initial. Why would you wait? You might have a better chance of a better result. I know a lot of people think they can't get a lawyer. It's not true. Some lawyers won't take it until it's really old and you've been denied and you've really screwed up the case. Many of us don't agree with that at all. My group, we prefer before the person even applies, so we can do the application and get it all perfected for you. It also is a good time to start We, what we're doing today is also in preparation if we have to go to a hearing. But you're making it as perfect today as you're going along. And we're also getting that stuff prepared in case we have to go to a hearing. That way, whenever the thing gets scheduled, boom, we're prepared, we're ready. The brief is practically done, by the time we're appealing for it, and then hopefully we don't even have to do that. But anyway, that's up to you. But I just think it works better as a generality. You could win without, though, for sure. And I hope you do. Okay. So this is Go Cucks again. I left a situational comment a day ago on your, I can actually use it my trial work period. Okay, I'll have to look for that. Before I even win my Social Security disability. Can I actually use it my trial work period? Before I even win my Social Security disability video. Can you look at it, please? Yeah, I'll try to find that. It's about, what is 820 BK? Oh, the 820 form? I will try to find it. Usually anything that I haven't responded to is supposed to come up on a list for me. I don't know that the YouTube situation is perfect, though. So I don't know. I will. If I see it, I will certainly answer. No worries. Okay. Dimple was saying, let me just pop up here first. My dryer has basically become my new closet. Frequent touch-up drying to remove the wrinkles. Right? They have that little anti-wrinkle feature where you heat it up for a little bit, right, Dimple? We do that here too. So Go Cucks. Basically, I got approved for SSDI the same month I had to leave a job I was in for 3 months. I see it as a failed work attempt because now they want to know of my earnings that year. Should I be worried? No. Was the 3 months surrounded by at least a month of no work before it, at least a month, and at least a month after it? I assume that 3 months was SGA. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a failed work attempt because you don't need a failed work attempt. It doesn't constitute work of a SGA nature, so you don't need to disprove it with a failed work attempt. Okay. So yeah, when they go back, that's going to count towards your trial work period. If those months you earned more than the trial work period amount, which presumably you did, they need to know about it because that affects later on. That's going to affect when your trial work period. If you end up getting more trial work months, you'll eventually expire out your trial work period, and then you'll be popped into your extended period of eligibility, and they need to know that date because that's where different rules apply to you. So really important to know. It's important for you to know, more importantly, so that you can be sure not to pop yourself out of your trial work period if that's not what you want to do. Okay. Yeah, this is typical because I never knew I would be approved while working, and I did have 8 months of work pay that was above TWP. 8 months. Wow, you were cutting it close there, bud. It could be above TWP and under SGA. So if that were the case, you'd be out, you would soon be out of your trial work period, but you wouldn't necessarily be ceased because you're still working under SGA, and that work might not depict a person that could work full time, right? And you were under SGA. So George just got released from PT after 6 spine surgery. George, ouch. I asked my therapist, do they ever do a RFC for SSA? They said, no. Is this normal? Yes, most providers aren't going to do squat. They don't want to be, they don't know the SSA rules. And if they say something that's true in their mind about how limited you are, but that doesn't meet the tight threshold that you might have if you're 49 or 52 or whatever of what you need to have it say, now they just sunk your ship by being honest because, and they don't want to be that person. I don't blame them. They don't know the rules. And of course they're going to be honest anyway, even if they did know the rules. But I don't, the function, the PT records, the reason why I love them is because they almost give an RFC without giving an RFC. When they talk about, he said he was very sore after last session, said he had bad sleep due to pain after last session, or it'll say having difficulty with this session, needs cueing on posture, still needs more. So there's all these little tidbits of information sometimes in PT records that I think are good. There are those little tiny crumbs, guys. It's like a bunch of crumbs to make up that cake to get to an award. And that's why I like PT, because you have, say, 12 visits in 1 month or 2 months. That would have taken you 5 years or 8 years to get that with a specialist. And yes, physical therapist is not an MD, but they were usually referred by an MD, and they can be worth their weight in gold. They're not the diagnosing person, they're not the MD, but they're credible observationists. They're observing you and commenting, and they're not like your family members who supposedly have an incentive for you to win of a financial nature or an emotional nature. Okay. So Gocox is talking about working while your case is pending, and he was going over trial work period. He was probably going over SGA for those months. 8 out of 9 months. Don't do it again until 5 years have passed. So you never have those 9 months within a 5-year scrolling period. They can't, because it doesn't matter if they're consecutive or not consecutive, right? So if I were you, I would not get out of the trial work period just to be super safe. And you have your benefits now, so you might not have to for that extra money, right? You can live, and you could work under TWP, and then you don't expire out your TWP period. And then in 5 years, you get none of those months are going to connect, because it's that scrolling 5-year period. So in 6 years, none of those months are even in the current 5-year period. And you could play around with TWP again, but if you're being cautious, maybe right now is not a good time to do it. Deborah Thornton. Hi, Deborah. Oops, where are you? Oopsie. I applied for SSDI in November. I had a shoulder replacement a month ago. Although I did list it, I have 4 other major impairments. They said they won't review my case for 90 days to see how I improved. All right. You said I have 4 other major impairments, although I did list it. Did you mean you did not list the other ones? Did you list all the shoulder plus the 4 other impairments, which is what you should have done? And you could do that now. You don't have to say, "Oh, I forgot to do it there. I'm screwed out of that." No, you can tell them about. By the way, I have this, and this. I didn't know if I should put it. I mean, they know everybody doesn't know necessarily what they're doing when they apply. The 90 days sometimes, particularly if it could be material to an award or not. If someone had a surgery and that they want to see how the result. This happens sometimes, not all the time. They want to see how that surgery, because right now you don't have use of a shoulder. And maybe that for your particular vocational profile and all your other impairments makes you disabled. But in 4 months from now, maybe you won't be disabled because now you could lightly use it and now these other jobs open up. So very important. If you have complaints about your shoulder, don't be shy about sharing them to the doctor, and not just the surgeon, him too, but the other doctors, because sometimes some of them won't mention it. Sometimes they have a little God complex, and if they did surgery on you, of course you're going to be perfect, right? Because they are perfect in their surgeries. So if you be very clear and vocal about ongoing pain limitations and all that with all of your impairments, but particularly your post-surgicals, I would say. Because I know sometimes I see this all the time, guys, where I'll see my clients when I'm wearing it, and let's say, said he's doing okay today. And that's like a really vague statement, right? But it applies. I mean, judges will pull that out and be like, look at him, this didn't, he was okay. So this is not some continuing painful reduction in quality of life on an ongoing basis. Well, no, because some people, when they're dog, they're like, how you doing today? Oh, I'm okay. Which they're okay means same crap as before. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worse, or I'm in my range of badness, but not maybe worse. So the vague terms can be damaging, I guess, when it comes down to quantifying it later when. Yeah, go cucks, you were over SGA. Yeah, which is fine because TWP, once you're over TWP, that's all that matters. But if you're over SGA and you get in your EPE, extended period of eligibility, you're going to owe back every month during that 3-year period that you were over SGA. Just automatically have to owe it back. So just be real careful going forward, and I think you'll be fine. And keep up with your medical treatment and your evidence. Deborah Thornton is 55. Yeah, talk to your lawyer, Deborah, about the little strategies you can do to build up that evidence so that it's not all relying on your shoulder. Because what if your shoulder does vastly improve from surgery, which it's supposed to do, but we just know that it doesn't always happen. What are surgeries? Is it a 50-50? Is it a, and it's hard to tell given, whatever the rest of your vocational profile is, what level of arm use would suffice for your case versus not suffice for your case. And what are those other impairments? Because they're going to be very, very important. Because generally speaking, just one bad shoulder isn't going to win a case, right? So I would talk to your lawyer and just make sure you're getting, that way you have a better chance of winning earlier, just get it all spruced up right from the start. And hopefully you don't have a lawyer that doesn't want to give you the strategies because they want you to be denied so the case takes longer so they get a bigger fee. Let's hope that's not one you have. Just me. Oh, tap the like button, y'all. Thank you. That would be nice. John Gone. Oh, you're sweet. Always making my day. All right, we're talking about laundry still. You guys are like heavy on the laundry today. Okay. Go cucks. My concern was I feel like I'm in trouble for not reporting those months I worked. Well, when you applied, so you started after you applied? You know what? They see people not reporting it a lot in that area. They're not going to assume that you're committing fraud. They're, if you just say, I didn't know I was supposed to, just do the 820, And is it 820 or 821? 820 would be for self-employment, 821 for W-2 employment. Okay. I wouldn't, they're just going to look to see what those, whether you're in your trial work period, how many months you've used up, because they have to count each and every one, right? Because then that pops you in your EPE, which you don't really want to get into that if you can help it. And looking at you're still in your trial work period. They cannot look at the work you did to determine that you are able to work and not be disabled. They can't look at the work, but if you pop out of your trial work period, now they can look at your work. So that's why you kind of want to not pop out of it. Mrs. Andrews, thank you. I have seen your function report videos and took your recommendations. Do I need more failed work attempts? I've had one job in 15 years due to the conditions I have. Why would you need more failed work attempts? I'm not really sure I'm following. A failed work attempt is just if you were doing SGA briefly, you want to, and it would otherwise show that you were doing non-disabled work for a few months, but then it doesn't work out because of your disabilities and it's all less than 6 months. You can argue it's a failed work attempt so your case doesn't get canceled. If your case isn't going to get canceled because you don't have that issue, you don't want to create work attempts or failed work attempts or, Go Cucks, you're very welcome. Oh, that's sweet of you. I don't really understand how that gifting of memberships work. That's interesting. Someone did that a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Trish, does trial work period start in the 5-month waiting period or after receiving first check? Okay, it can't start before your date of application. So even if you applied today and you allege that you were disabled 2 years ago, and I'm trying to think, there's the two things. Date of application, it's going to be the latter of. So like if you haven't applied till today, and I'll have to double, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's the date of application. If you apply today, it would be things going on from here after. You could be alleging that you were disabled 2 years ago, and you could have I'm going to double check this. I know it's in one of the videos. I'm just having a brain fart on it. Date of application. And the other date is, it's never going to be before your onset date, obviously. I think that's the two things. Remind me to go confirm those, and we can stick them down below. The 5-month waiting period. The trial work period can be before you receive your first check. Okay. I believe we'd have to really kind of diagram it out. I'm very visual with that, graphs and different ways of graphing things out. So when this overlaps with this and this and this, it's kind of a weird way I spatially look at things. Oh, go Cooks. That is so super sweet. Don't overspend though. Oh, Viv. Viv says, I just called the adjudicator on my letter. It seems like the VM was the same person listed. Left a message with my case number and phone number. Probably should have just hung up. No, I forget. What were you going to tell him about? Should I scroll up? It seems like the VM was the same. Oh, the voicemail. Okay. I'm not sure what you're saying here, but how are we doing, everybody? Did we catch everybody's questions? Are we good? I think we could split if we are. Believe it or not, I'm in this room. I'm in my last stop before I get back to my regular home in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm in Perry County, Pennsylvania. Really kind of like my favorite place. But after I think y'all know, well, some of you, I was traveling. I was relocating my mom to go spend some lifetime with my sister in Minnesota. So I was driving west to have a little meet and greet at an Airbnb that we stayed at on Lake Michigan. It was really lovely. It really was. It was really sad though. I think I'm going to have a little bit of homesickness for my mom, who's been with me for 14 years. But I think it was just best I think she'd have more attention and care, and it would just be better for her given my schedule. So she'll have more company and stuff. All right. Okay, so Viv is saying it's been over 10 weeks since her medical consultations is why I called, and 14.5 months since initial. Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes it's just, if you're pro se in particular, you can call and say, if you haven't heard anything, to say, hey, I'm just wondering if there's anything you need from me. I want to make sure you've got all my doctors. I sent you letters in every time I got a new doctor or something important. I just want to make sure you've got them. And it's kind of like a passive, nice way to get their attention. And at least they know, it's going to get your paperwork in front of their face again. And of course, always bees with honey is the way I think about it. You don't necessarily want to, sometimes I have to get a little prickly with it occasionally with an adjudicator if they're really not doing their job. But by and large, they are. They're really trying. So, I just want to be as helpful as I can. And I'm always willing to. I always let them know that I'm here at your disposal for anything I can help you to get your job done. Because, the faster they can do the job of my client's case, the faster my client's going to be able to prevail and put this whole stressful situation behind them. So, all right. Yeah, Dimple, I do too. I really appreciate this community of people and all the great info you share here. Oh, I appreciate those words. And I love you guys. It makes it all worth it. It's such a great field to be in for those of us that do it kind of with the same mindset I have. I can't speak for others in different offices who are, associates. Being my own boss was always like the only way I could do it. But anyway, I think we're good, right, guys? What is this? Oh, I'm not doing that. All right. I think we're thanks for this. It's been fun and informative. Thanks, Rat's Nest, and thanks for visiting. I will see you guys. I'll be around next Wednesday. And otherwise, we have our 9 a.m. the video shares that get popped out. Okay. I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for being here. Bye.